The wind over the red plains carried more than dust, it whispered. Through cracked domes and static-scarred screens, the outpost scanners pinged softly. One ping repeated. Directional. Advancing. Not a ship. Not an animal. One figure. He walked across the wasteland like the world owed him no explanation. The atmosphere here ate most armor in under a day. His cloak remained untouched, its fabric fluttering against rules no weather obeyed. No data, no ID, no heat signature. They said only one species could move like that and not be tracked. Only one species dared walk into a guarded outpost without warning. No one said the word. Not yet. Inside the command core, second cycle analyst Erin tapped through feed. Her fingers moved faster than the incoming alerts, but her mind was elsewhere, on a name too old to appear in public archives. She didn't believe the stories. No one her age did. But fear made patterns in people. And the guards stationed on every access door were showing those patterns now. They didn't blink. He passed through security checkpoints without triggering a single alert. Cameras followed him. AI failed to predict his next step. One door opened. Another. He stopped just inside the main hallway and turned his head toward the barracks wall, as though sensing something behind it. He tilted his head slightly. The sensors watching him shut down in sequence. Someone dropped a weapon. No one dared pick it up. Erin found her legs moving before she had the clearance. Protocol didn't matter. She keyed open the hallway bulkhead. He stood in the center, surrounded by men who no longer remembered their rank. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. His presence crushed the air thinner than the atmosphere outside. When she locked eyes with him, the world slowed. A flicker of light caught her attention. His satchel had slipped slightly open from the movement, revealing a piece of armor worn with age. Her breath caught in her throat. The sigil engraved into the metal wasn't decorative. It wasn't regional. It was impossible. A circle of 13 stars surrounding an upturned V. The mark of soul. It should have been extinct. She'd seen the symbol once, burned onto a banned artifact from a ruin no one admitted existed. It was the crest of the final Terran expansion core, dissolved after the human disappearance. Every government in the galaxy erased it from the net. But here it was, faded but unmistakable. The others didn't notice. They watched his hands, his posture. She fell to one knee. "You are the one," she whispered. No one moved. Someone tried to speak and choked on their own voice. The man didn't react. He hadn't acknowledged anyone since he arrived. But Erin knew. This wasn't random. He could have chosen any outpost, any planet. He came here. She didn't ask why. She bowed her head. In the static-drenched silence, a cold realization settled across the floor. This wasn't an individual. This was history with feet. Judgment made flesh. She heard footsteps behind her. Another soldier dropped beside her, not understanding why, only knowing that standing felt wrong. Then another. Knees bent. Heads lowered. The mark radiated more authority than any fleet. Later, in the data archives hidden beneath the outpost, Erin guided him down levels no civilian ever entered. She used override codes she didn't know she had memorized. He said nothing. She led him to a chamber etched with warnings in languages long dead. Inside, ancient terminals flickered to life without touch. The room had one centerpiece, a digital mosaic of galactic conquest, paused on the last war humanity fought. Erin stood beside him, watching his reflection in the screen. His face remained unreadable, but the air trembled. She recited the stories banned in her school years. When the Terrans came, they didn't conquer, she said softly. They ended wars by showing up. Every system has a different name for them. The unyielding, the apex, the flame that watches. She looked at him. They said if the mark of soul ever reappeared, the galaxy would change. Not with invasions, not with declarations, just change. She turned to the mosaic again. We thought your kind died out, or left, or went silent after seeing too much. Still no words from him. She walked closer to the armor fragment mounted in the wall, a relic kept under concealment protocols. She pressed her palm against it. The metal pulsed once, briefly. It wasn't supposed to respond to anyone. She turned to him again. But you came back. Alone. He finally moved, placing one gloved hand on the console. Lights along the floor activated, drawing a perfect circle. In the center, a line of code flashed on the central pillar. It was old Terran tactical script, undecipherable to most. But Erin had seen enough scraps to know the format. Legacy mode enabled. Her heart pounded. This outpost, like many abandoned ones reclaimed by current civilizations, must have once belonged to a human forward station. The infrastructure, though modified, still carried buried routines. And it had waited. For him. A flicker on her communicator. Multiple pings. Distant systems flagged the reactivation of prohibited pattern, human designated. Communications filtered through command. External relays triangulated his location. It had taken them minutes to realize what had awakened. Something's watching, she said under her breath. Another alert. A high-altitude drone captured an image of the human's arrival, including the exposed mark. It had already reached 6 other colonies. Erin felt cold realization. Someone was going to act fast to erase him. They would assume he came to restore domination. They wouldn't ask questions. She looked at him again. Still silent. Still unmoved. She stepped forward. If they come for you, they won't understand. He turned toward her. His eyes met hers. There was no threat in them, only something deeper. Older. She felt it in her bones. This was not a soldier. Not a leader. This was a reminder. She stood straighter. Then they'll answer to me first. The broadcast reached Sector Command in under 10 minutes. By then, every major galactic faction had a copy. The symbol. The man. The kneeling girl. Some dismissed it. Some panicked. One admiral, who'd fought in the last border conflict 2 decades ago, stared at the image for a long time before ordering full strategic silence. Erin paced in the observation chamber. Below her, the human walked the hallways of the outpost like a shadow uncontained. Doors opened for him without codes. Lights adjusted to his path. The base was bending, not in obedience, but in memory. As if the metal itself recognized the weight it once carried. She asked the AI for records on human psychological warfare. The files were corrupted or missing. But one fragment survived, a line spoken during the last human deployment. Presence is power. Fear is a gift we lend. We never take it back. She repeated the words, trying to understand their gravity. No weapon had been drawn. No threats issued. And yet, her people's most seasoned warriors stood frozen when he walked near. In the mess hall, someone dropped a tray. The human glanced sideways. No reprimand. Just that glance. The soldier apologized to the floor and left in silence. Every system in orbit now monitored internal chatter. Hundreds of mentions of the mark. Rumors warped into prophecy. The one who returns. The marked soul-bearer. The echo of the end. Factions scrambled to interpret his meaning. Some suggested negotiation. Others proposed preemptive elimination. The transmission spread faster than command protocols could contain. Within 4 hours of the mark's appearance, 76 independent networks across 12 systems began broadcasting theories. None had confirmation, but all carried the same image. One human, one insignia, and a kneeling alien officer. The silence around it was deafening. Inside the outpost, Erin stood at the main archive interface, cycling through fragmented human war record. The system responded differently now. Her clearance codes pulled deeper layers. Layers that shouldn't exist. The database unfolded, tracing battle paths across long-dead stars. The same symbol surfaced repeatedly. Soul's mark. The human didn't need to say anything. Systems were speaking for him. The architecture was older than any galactic engineering standard, but the patterns still executed. Sequences initiated when he passed through doors. Lights shifted in temperature. Gravity slightly recalibrated for his pace. She ran her hand across the relic display. A sublayer opened beneath it, interactive. A prompt appeared, witness classification confirmed. Awaiting directive input. She looked over her shoulder. He was behind her, watching the map expand. Her voice barely carried. They knew you'd come back. He said nothing. He never did. 3 visiting diplomats arrived without warning. Ships bearing coalition insignias landed near the northern hangar. No guards intervened. The human walked past them as they disembarked. They froze. None greeted him. All their eyes followed him until he was gone. Inside the negotiation chamber, they refused to sit at the same table he had passed. Aaron noted it. Their voices were calm, rehearsed, but beneath the cadence, fear twisted like a root. The presence of this entity, one began, has triggered a Class 9 ripple in our command intelligence networks. Historically impossible, said another. Humans are an extinction variable, not a current threat. He hasn't said anything, Aaron replied. He hasn't done anything. That's exactly what makes it worse, the third diplomat answered. Your outpost is sitting on a symbol that ended 3 empires without a single warship. They requested permission to detain him. She refused. They requested access to his origin data. She lied and said none existed. They pressed again. Aaron stood, signaling the meeting was over. He didn't ask for permission to come here. Neither did the past when it returned. They left without touching their cup. Outside, their ships powered up defensive fields despite clear flight paths. The human remained seated in the lower chamber. He hadn't moved in hours. Terminals continued to adjust around him. When Aaron returned, she found new threads activated, deep code inside forgotten satellite network. She traced one and watched it auto-decrypt. A file opened. Audio only. A broadcast from 400 years ago. If they return, don't respond with weapons. Respond with memory. Let them know we still remember what they were. Aaron saved the file. Upstairs, the communications team intercepted high-level panic across major systems. One border empire declared preemptive quarantine on all Terran-class anomalies. Another faction, once allied with humans, began covert scans of ancient battlegrounds. None knew if he was here to speak or to judge. Soldiers approached Aaron in quiet. Some asked for history text. Others requested to see the mark. One, barely old enough for a command patch, stood in front of the chamber for 10 minutes before kneeling alone. No words. Just reverence. In the supply bay, an older engineer ran diagnostics on the base's power grid. He paused and stared at a subroutine in the energy core. His voice was low when he summoned her. This code wasn't ours. She examined it. Lines of dormant Terran code had recompiled, stabilizing the base's core functions. Efficiency had risen. Power draw had flattened. The system ran as if it remembered how. She walked through the main corridor as data feeds displayed planetary broadcasts. News anchors speculated. Academics refused comment. Even black market traders had pulled old human artifacts from vault. Every symbol was being compared to the mark. Aaron returned to her room. She found her personal tablet open with a new file queued. Unmarked, untraceable. She opened it. It showed coordinates, deep within their own planet's crust. Below the foundation of the outpost. A chamber no record acknowledged. She didn't ask how the file got there. She followed it. Below the base, layers of reinforced bedrock hid a passage. Her biometric clearance should have failed. It didn't. The walls pulsed with quiet, unseen electricity. At the base of the tunnel, a door opened with the sound of ancient hydraulics breathing once more. Inside, a chamber held a stasis vault. Sleek, black, human-built. Terran language etched across its face. If the mark walks, awaken the eye. Aaron stepped back. Something clicked behind her. He was already there. The human walked to the vault, placed his palm against the seal. The machine hissed open. Inside, a sphere hovered. Light shimmered across its surface like moving water. Without instruction, it floated toward the center of the room. The chamber's walls lit with star map. Updated. Real-time. Galaxies aligned, not in the current charting grid, but by the old Terran imperial structure. A model no longer used. Except it matched perfectly. Data streamed from the sphere. Alerts blinked across the holographic surface. One stood out. Reactivation protocol. Legacy key confirmed. Signal echo sent to all Terran-linked relays. She watched, heart pounding. They hadn't just waited for him. They'd built a network across time, ready to respond the moment he returned. The galaxy had never understood what humans truly left behind. They hadn't left weapons. They left expectation. Above them, orbital satellites began redirecting. Not under any known authority. They spun slowly, adjusting to new alignments. A full system realignment began, navigation grids syncing with the old Terran beacon. Ships blinked off scanners. Transport lanes jammed. AI command centers scrambled to regain control. Back at the outpost, command officers received anonymous warnings. One word in each message, observe. They knew who it referred to, and what he might become. On a moon in a nearby system, a derelict human listening post powered on for the first time in 308 years. It emitted a low-band pulse, encoded with coordinates pointed back to Aaron's outpost. In the chamber, she turned to him. It's not just you. Everything remembers you. He turned toward her. His eyes flickered once. The lights followed. They emerged together. The outpost stood differently now, as though straightened, reoriented. A quiet procession of personnel awaited them, unorganized, voluntary. No one said anything. They simply stepped back as he passed. Aaron stood at the center console. New commands available. One option pulsed softly. Enable signal chain. Her hand hovered. This wakes them all, she said. He didn't nod. Didn't blink. Just waited. She pressed it. The stars dimmed for 3 seconds. Then surged. Across systems, forgotten satellites aligned. Deep core machines rebooted. In gas giants, listening beacons rang out, carried by ion storms. Somewhere far away, on a world thought extinct, a voice whispered awake. Confirmed. Governments panicked. Fleets rearmed. But they were too late. The alignment had already occurred. The orbiting warship arrived without broadcast. No lights, no transponder. Just a shift in the stars, then the blotting of one. Aaron watched from the upper deck as it cast its shadow across the command dome. A Class 7 dreadnought, shields raised, weapons charged. They weren't here to observe. They were here to erase. Inside, the human stood unmoved. The mark on his chestplate reflected the warship's glare. No one spoke. The room felt like a breath waiting to be exhaled. Aaron stood beside him, shoulders square. If they fired, there'd be no time for evacuation. The first strike came in silence. A directed kinetic impact, precise and massive. The dome shattered. Shockwaves tore through the eastern flank. Dust, steel, and screaming wind filled the corridor. When it cleared, the human was still standing, ash settling on his shoulders. The crater around him smoked. He hadn't moved. Systems flickered. Fire alarms wailed. Medical units scrambled. But those close enough to see the center of the blast saw only one thing: the shape of a man untouched by fire. Aaron pulled herself from the rubble, coughing blood, ears ringing. He stood in the center of the blast zone, eyes fixed upward. The dreadnought didn't fire again. Across the network, thousands of silent satellites lit up, not by human command, but by exposure to the mark's presence. One by one, nodes from deep storage unlocked. They weren't weapons. They were memories. Record. Triggered when recognition matched the mark. Galactic history rewritten itself in real time. On a diplomatic council world 2 sectors away, a senator screamed into a transmitter. Do you understand what this means? He hasn't retaliated, and we've already lost strategic ground. You fired at a symbol. You just reignited the war they left unfinished. They began purging archives, hiding transmissions. But it was too late. The ripple had already passed through the old networks, and humans built their networks like arteries, cut one and another pulsed stronger. In the rubble, Aaron staggered toward him. He extended no hand, made no sound. But the base stabilized around him. Core systems rerouted energy without prompt. Structural integrity restored section by section. She stood beside him again. They thought destruction would erase you. He looked at her, gaze heavy with quiet understanding. But you were never about war, she whispered. You were always the reckoning that followed it. On a far moon in the Vetran expanse, long-dormant planetary machinery shifted. Monoliths rose from the sand, projecting the mark into the sky. Not as threat, as confirmation. In the central archive, new entries appeared. Entire races once erased by their own governments now had their history restored. Reports from ancient battles. Testimonies from those who met Terrans and lived to tell it. Not about fire, but about discipline, silence, and the fear of seeing one man shut down a fleet with nothing but presence. The dreadnought hovered longer than protocol allowed. Inside its command chamber, the captain issued orders for a second strike. No shot left the barrel. The systems locked. Not jammed, rejected. The ship rerouted power to engines. Began slow withdrawal. In the logs, the final statement: engagement aborted. The anomaly does not permit retaliation. They couldn't even fire if they wanted to. Aaron climbed the ridge above the outpost's perimeter. Below, he stood like a fault line in human form, unshaken. More were coming. She saw the shimmer of scout ships already approaching orbit. They were coming to witness, not intervene. The data core he'd activated now streamed directly to ancient Terran relay point. Across forgotten ruins, lights blinked in confirmation. Legacy command, unspoken for generations, ran again. In the central chamber, she accessed the last locked file. Legacy Judgment Protocol. It wasn't a weapon. It was a mirror. Any system attempting violence against a Terran-marked site was reflected back its own military history. Every sin, every extermination, every forced sterilization, every colony erased, shone live across their own networks. When they tried to bury humans, they buried themselves. On the bridge of the withdrawing dreadnought, command screens showed images of their empire's worst atrocities, broadcast to their people. Not as punishment, as exposure. They powered down completely, and left. Inside the outpost, the human moved through the halls. He left footprints in ash. Every console lit as he passed. Aaron followed him without words. When they reached the lift to the subterranean vault, the door opened before they pressed anything. Deep within, the sphere. The eye had completed its activation. It now hovered calmly, processing billions of queries from every linked world. Aaron stepped forward and placed her hand on the console. A message flashed. Witness verified. Activation complete. Custodianship transferred. She looked back at him. You were never meant to rule again, she said softly. Just to remind us who did last. He turned and began walking toward the open lift. Not backward, forward. The system's alignment was complete. He wasn't here to seize power. He was the litmus test, the final standard, the warning flare built into the fabric of galactic design. And now that he had returned, the rest of the galaxy had to decide what it remembered, and what it would forget. From across known space, new signals poured in. Systems long sealed opened. Human-designed satellites began broadcasting again. Not messages of war, of presence, of legacy. The mark didn't demand allegiance. It demanded respect. It demanded reflection. On one core world, a child looked up at a new symbol glowing on their school's holodisplay. Teachers scrambled to block it. Too late. The child asked, "Is that real?" It was. Aaron walked beside him as far as the outer ring of the base. Beyond that, he didn't need a guide. The base responded as if remembering its first purpose. He stepped through the exit gates, and they sealed behind him. She stood alone now. Ships circled overhead but kept their distance. Not a single weapon fired. Because he hadn't. And that silence carried more weight than any invasion. She returned to the archive one final time. A prompt waited. Would you like to log this event? She entered one word. Returned. And in every system, across every network that once knew fear and forgot its name, the word echoed. He never led a fleet. He never gave a speech. He simply came back. And the galaxy remembered.